Thanks for joining us on Shannons Club TV, where we look back on the most significant cars from Australian roads and racetracks. For today's episode, we've located a great example of our feature car. Stay tuned for our visit with the proud owner.
We'll also get the latest market news from the Shannons auctions team. So let's kick off with Holden's lion-hearted compact car that became a giant killer on the track, the Torana GTR XU1.
The Holden Torana GTR XU1 is one of several great Australian classic cars that would never have come into being had it not been for a 500-mile race at a rural race circuit west of Sydney. Peter Brock, the new boy in the Holden dealer team and who knew lots about hotting up Holden six-packs, helped Harry Firth develop the LC XU1 in time for the 1970 Enduro. The XU1's 186S engine got a hot cylinder head developed by Dyno Dave Bennett, triple carburettors and extractors, bigger brakes, reworked suspension, front and rear spoilers and the all-important 17-gallon tank were all key ingredients. Every aspect of the XU1's carefully tailored specification cried Bathurst. The front spoiler, for example, not only aided stability, but also channeled air onto the front discs. And consider the standard final drive ratio of 3.36, which was ideal for climbing the mountain. A tougher, faster version of the LC XU1 was released in 1971. Mark, the Torana XU1 concept was a huge change in corporate philosophy by Holden, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was. I mean, it was late in 1969 when Holden was still basking in the afterglow of the Monaro's surprise victory over the GTHO at Bathurst. The chief engineer, Bill Steinhagen, and sales boss, John Bagshaw, sat down and said, you know what, it would just be too costly and socially unacceptable for us to try to out-GTHO, the GTHO, with an even tougher, faster Monaro. So Steinhagen is credited with coming up with the Torana XU1 concept, which was taking a more scientific approach to beating the GTHO, which I'll get to a bit later on.
Peter Brock's first Bathurst win came in 1972 in the new LJ XU1. The LJ used a very different 202 engine from the HQ Kingswood with 10.3 compression and 190 brake horsepower, up 10 from the 1971 Bathurst edition of the LC. The LJ was much improved for the road too, with a less bouncy ride. You could even specify flash houndstooth cloth trim. The race car engines were balanced and blueprinted. They made 212 horsepower. Still, I think it's fair to say that Peter Brock was the biggest single factor in this car's Bathurst success. For the LJ XU1's 1973 Swan Song, about 150 cars scored a new Perry's tubular exhaust manifold, an even wilder cylinder head from Dave Bennett, assorted upgraded engine components, heavy-duty axles and stronger brakes. It's no wonder all Torana GTR XU1s are cherished. They delighted fans as they outhandled and outbraked the heavyweight Falcon GTs and GTHOs at Mount Panorama and generally embarrassed the Ford drivers on tight circuits such as the much lamented Amaroo Park and Oran Park. Mark, Peter Brock's first Bathurst victory in that XU1, it really was a classic David versus Goliath battle, wasn't it?
It sure was. And you know, Holden could not lose in the public eye because if the Torana lost to the Falcons, it was seen as courageous. And of course, if it won, it was seen as a giant killer. The LC Torana GTR XU1 proved that high performance was not only measured in cubic inches. Shoehorning a 3-litre inline 6 from a large Holden into a small one provided a compelling alternative to the heavyweight V8 Monaro for both racing and rallying. The stove-hot Torana 6 had a better power-to-weight ratio than the Monaro. It was also about 400 kilograms lighter than the Falcon GTHO, with a much smaller frontal area for less aero drag. It also had superior handling and greatly reduced tyre wear, brake pad wear and fuel consumption. Holden's switch to the Torana in 1970 looked to be the right call when Colin Bond won first time out at Warwick Farm. At Bathurst, he also famously shot past Alan Moffat's GTR under brakes at the end of Conrod Straight on the first lap to take the lead. But the Holden dealer team's giant-killing plans soon fell apart due to valve failures in both cars. John, we should also mention at this point what an absolutely brilliant rally car the XU1 was. I mean, between the LC and the LJ models, they won 4 Australian Rally Championships in a row.
Well, when you think about it, we talk about race and rallying. It's probably even more important in rallying to have that lighter weight, better powder weight ratio. Yeah.
And compact. I mean, you know, Colin Bond used to talk about trying to rally the big Monaros. If you went off the track, you just accelerate and just drive over all the trees and get back on the track. Whereas the Torana was just so much more nimble. They never had those problems. And it was just beautifully balanced. They had enough grunt to be able to flick, change attitude, great brakes. And the thing that really stuck in my mind was the work that Holden dealer team did to make those cars strong enough. You know, they were welding bits of iron rod in all through all the roof pillars and everything.
It was the principle of making the original Holden tough enough for Australia, and that legacy lived on, and that served them very well in turning what had been a 4-cylinder car into a 6-cylinder car.
Yeah, nothing could touch it for a few years there. Incredible. Although an improved version of the LC XU1 claimed the 1971 Manufacturers' Championship, it was outgunned by the awesome GTHO Phase 3 at Bathurst. As a result, Holden was well advanced with plans to enter a 5-litre V8-powered LJ XU1 for the 1972 clash, but the infamous supercar scare killed it only days before production was due to commence. Instead, Holden refined the existing 202-engined LJ XU1 for Bathurst, including lightweight Globe alloy wheels intended for the XU1 V8. It was this car which Peter Brock drove to his first mountain win in 1972. With further upgrades, the HDT XU1s defeated Ford's new XA GT hardtops to win the 1973 Manufacturers' Championship and helped Brock to secure his first Australian Touring Car Championship in 1974. As a result, the Torana XU1 will always be remembered as the homegrown giant killer of Aussie touring car racing. Remember to join the Shannons Club, where you can connect with other enthusiasts around the country.
My name is Rod, and this is my 1973 Torana XU1, which is one of the 150 Bathurst specials. The 73 had special pistons, bigger conrods, light and flywheel, and fine spline different axles to make them more durable for Bathurst. A couple of years ago we gave it a full body makeover just to get it back to looking 100%. The engine is a 202 with the triple Strombergs and XU1 spec engine. I originally bought this car on New Year's Eve 1976. We sold it in 1978. Thought about it later and thought I really should have another one of these, so went looking and found the original car and bought it back, and that was in 1989. The car's motorsport history was why I bought it, because I wanted to compete in club level motorsport with the car. I had a GTR Torana and it wasn't quick enough, so I needed an XU1. And I used it in hill climbs and sprints and dirt autocrosses and motorcarnas, and it was a great car for that. Colour and the sound of it, nothing like a 6-cylinder Holden motor at 6,500 revs. Awesome. I've been with Shannons since 1989 and never had any dramas with them at all. They've been good to deal with. The most memorable moment with the car was Bathurst in 2002, celebrating Brock's 30 years since Brocky won, and we did a lap on race day in front of the race crowd, and that was pretty awesome. We're just going to keep the car and drive it to historic events and shows and things and enjoy it.
Tony Hansen from Shannons Auctions joins us with a market update on the fabulous XU1 Torana. Welcome, Tony.
Thanks, John.
Welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, Mark.
We're talking about LC and LJ XU1s, but there's actually 5 different specifications of these cars. If you think about it, you had the original LC XU1,
Yep.
then you had in 1971, you had like a pre-Bathurst special.
Yes.
The LJ came along in early 72. In late 72, we had another batch of Bathurst specials, and then in 73, the final batch of Bathurst specials. So there's 5 different specifications of that car. That must present a bit of a challenge for a collector, doesn't it?
It does indeed. It does indeed. I mean, which one do you collect?
Which one do you collect?
Well, I imagine that.
Good question.
Yeah, those homologation cars, they must be the most
They
valuable.
are. The homologation cars are the most valuable because
Yeah.
they are the most limited numbers of the cars.
Yeah,
that are
only
being
small
produced.
volumes,
Very
weren't
small
they?
volumes.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling, Tony, I may be completely wrong, but I've got a feeling that the LJ is generally just a fraction more desirable than the LC.
Yeah. How is that?
No, I think beauty's in the eye of the beholder, actually.
Yeah. Given the desirability of those Bathurst cars, as we call them, there must be temptations for the crooks to take a standard car and make a replica. I mean, that's a real challenge for a collector, because how do you know you're getting the right car?
You need to do your homework.
Yeah.
And if you're not sure, if you're looking at one of these sort of muscle type cars, you need to get experts in to make sure that everything's in its right spot. It's got the correct engine, the correct tags, correct body markings.
But to do that, there are a lot of experts around there.
There
Guys who just know every number, every
Yeah,
nut
and
and
you
bolt.
just need to contact the clubs, the relevant clubs. They'll have experts in the clubs, and that's what you need to do.
There were some great colours too, weren't there,
Yes, there
Tony?
were,
I mean,
yeah.
the ones that stick in my mind, my favourite is striped pink, but there was also Barney's shirt, because
yep.
some poor designer called Barney wore a purple shirt into work one day.
I used to like the Dolly Yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reckon it's a great colour.
They had some great colours at that time. It
And
really
great
captured
colour
the-
names as
yeah,
well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great names.
Does the colour affect the price?
I don't think so.
Comparing apples with apples?
Yeah,
no?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Probably the rarer the better, wouldn't
The
it?
rarer the better, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And remember, you can get all the latest auction news on the Shannons Club website. For your own image of the Torana XU1 in competition, visit the huge archive at autopix.com.au.
Yeah, it's interesting looking back at the LC and LJ XU1. I mean, if you look at what Holden did with this car, it was such a massive departure in corporate philosophy. But in terms of a 6-cylinder compact car, they set a benchmark with that no one else could match, really, could they?
They did. Both Ford and Chrysler tried to do a similar thing by taking a 4-cylinder car and putting a 6-cylinder engine in it.
So that was the TC-TD Cortina.
And the Chrysler Centura.
Centura.
But when Holden developed the LC Torana, of course, you didn't have to get an XU1. You could get 6-cylinder sedans.
Yeah.
They were engineered to take that engine from the beginning. And really, when it came to that idea of let's drop in a bigger engine, General Motors and Holden in particular did it better than their rivals.
I think you'd have to say that, for
the
sure.
XU1 is the ultimate expression of that approach.
That's the proof today.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep. We hope you've enjoyed reflecting on the electrifying Torana GTR XU1, and we look forward to your company next time on Shannons Club TV. Bye for now.